Hey, a quick kind of design question thought for everybody. So we were playing some Anacrusis this morning, playing different time zones. We like to mix it up. The Anacrusis is on sale this week for the FPS festival for $5 US. I mean, that's so cheap. Uh, I think you're not supposed to say cheap. I think you're supposed to say inexpensive because cheap, yeah. It's fun. We had a lot of fun playing today. Really good games, a couple games. But with that, there was a discussion that came up about the one character is the spawner. So that the spawner is purposely made for in co-op. I wanted a way to drive players to behave poorly on the survivor side, meaning normally when you get separated from your friends in Left 4 Dead or in games like that, you do it because that creature forced you to, be it they grabbed you as a smoker, in our case the grabber, or they split you by hitting you really hard or pounced on you or something like that, right? And I wanted a character that gave agency to the survivors and said, this evil enemy will stay here. And what it does is it spawns off these little balls that come out and they shoot stuff at you and they'll do damage. They actually do the most damage of any enemy in the game because people will sometimes not hunt them down and just keep dealing with the results. But the idea was that it would drive players to eventually have to go hunt down these creatures. And in that sense, on Survivor side, it's effective, or in co-op side, it's effective. In Versus side, when you play it, you don't even have to have line of sight. You can hide behind stuff. And it's really effective if somebody's grabbed or gooed because you're multiplying damage to them. And it is a way you can just break a team really quickly. A really good spawner will just destroy a team. But a really good spawner is hard because it's not direct of like, I'm going to go do damage. I'm going to go run up to you and hit you. And I'm going to go just knock you down. And like all these kind of very physical actions are way easier for players to understand. And for Versus, we thought this is combinatorial, right? You would plan, you would strategize. And so with that, kind of following the rules we had come up with before was not to overload the alien or the infected players. And both Left 4 Dead and Anacrusis, I've kind of been consistent on this thought, is you want players to always be watching the game and understanding where the survivors are and where they can impact together with their teammates. And that's why we let you know what the other people are spawning as. And you even get to see them in the world. A really good team will devastate an okay team because they work together that way. It is something that just again and again I will see just flip the game. But in casual games, players often don't play that way and they just play, how can I express myself? What's the damage I can do? And they don't get that feeling. And so they feel frustrated. And so they ask to do other things with those players. In Left 4 Dead, the call was always, why can't I be a common? Well, because if you're a common, you're not paying attention to the game and you're just rushing in. And so just some people threw out some suggestions that they thought of that the spawner could do. And I just thought it was an interesting discussion. And it's not a bad discussion and nobody's wrong, right? I don't want to beat up people, but often I see these kind of discussions and I think because they are very in the moment of the physicality of it. And again, I like the spawner's behavior, especially in co-op. And I understand playing it sometimes feels like, since you're not directly doing damage, but it's abstracted that you see it, it doesn't feel as good. And we've heard that feedback. But my question for you is, I don't want to do the question of like, oh, let me spawn as a common, because that's going to be overwhelmingly the answer. And I will tell you, you want people to work as a team. I'm just going to say that maybe I'm saying that is wrong. But with that, I also just pointed out that we have no other systems in place for some of this stuff being talked about. Meaning, as the aliens, you are made to go and die. You throw yourself up on the rocks of the survivors. And that's how the game's designed. In this style of game, if you make something too resilient, it just becomes this really different kind of game of never ending for the survivors. And it's kind of fatiguing of always having this enemy. And so they had suggested some things of like being able to heal your alien friends and all of that. And that would be like a one-off system that doesn't exist in any other way. And I was pointing out that to me, those kind of systems come with two problems. One is discoverability, because you can't find them. And then the other is just actually understanding and using, even once you understand it, because it's just so alien to the others. I actually always go back to Overwatch as a really good example of you can move between characters fairly easily. I don't know about Overwatch 2, I didn't really get into it, but Overwatch 1, because of how they mapped abilities and expectations of behavior. And if you would have had somebody that was too far out of that, and in fact, I think the freezing character was the one that always felt to me broken in how they worked as a team and how they work cohesively. I forget the character's name, sorry. But I thought they did just a beautiful job of how they mapped behavior, controls, and discoverability, that you instantly discovered all of your characters really easily, which seems really obvious, but back in 2016, it wasn't how most FPSs did it, and it had some arcane systems of like, is it E or F to interact, as simple as that, right? So I'm kind of curious of what people think about like one-off systems. Do they feel unsupported and just floating out there because there's nothing else like it? Or do you still like those? Is there a good example of this where there is some system in a multiplayer that is just kind of this one-off that exists? Like normally my rule is, if you want to do something, what are 3 versions of it? Meaning like, I don't want just this one-off thing floating there. What are the other things you can put there that would be behaviorally correct? I mean, sometimes stuff like the Bash and Left 4 Dead, or in our case, the Anacrusis, the Pulse, I think are fine because they're interactions you're doing all of the time, and they're a core part of the game. We actually looked at allowing you to replace some of those systems in the Anacrusis so that you could have something else besides a pulse, like a blink or something. And that just felt really bad. Because you always wanted to have this core back. It'd be kind of like having an FPS shooter not having shooting in it. You want to have that core. So saying you're going to keep those cores, is there a game that just introduces like a one-off system that does it well, that you end up being like, hey, I really like this? If so, can you all leave it in the comments? Otherwise, just some insight in how I think about multiplayer and balancing, and especially trying to get people to work together, because the hardest thing in all these games really is getting people to work together as a team, because the minute you do that, like we pulled together as a team I'll post up on, we didn't do it live on YouTube, I did on Twitch, but I'll post up the game so you can see of the team that worked together was really just kicking butt. And so that is what I really want to do, but how you encourage that and how you get people to work on that is always just the curse. But that said, the Anacrusis is on sale this week on Steam for $5 or half off. So pick it up. Come join us on the Discord, discord.gg/StrayBombay. Again, that's discord.gg/StrayBombay. We play games all the time there. And in fact, we play other games as well. So even if you don't pick it up, but I mean, it's $5. Come on. And we're getting literally into the territory of less than a cup of coffee. So yeah, which is fine. We did this pricing experiments with Left 4 Dead as well. We would go down to like $2 and stuff and see. It was interesting. So, but that's where we are. So, and also if your friends haven't been playing it and they want to play it, it's good gift for the post-Easter, the world didn't end because CERN started apocalypse party gift that you wanted to get them.